last question.
Damn it. Okay, wait. Like complete the last question, or do you still get to ask me? A
I
question?
asked you. I was the first.
Oh.
So I asked my last question.
Okay. Yeah.
Now
yeah.
you asked me the last question.
Oh my god. Wait. I gotta make it a good one. All right. Since we've already touched on that.
Yeah.
How concerned are you for the future?
I don't think I'm. Define concerned.
Like, are you kind of worried, like, that you have a future, or like that we are headed into some kind of future that won't be beneficial to you, or like that's gonna be worse than what we are experiencing right now or before?
Yeah, it's hard to say because I don't know what is like better or worse. Like I think definitely in the next decade, like let's say it like this. Like if we now jump in time to like 2030.
Yeah.
We would probably not recognize the world. I think there in the next few years there's going to be so many changes and they're going to be very rapid.
Yeah.
That the world will become like almost unrecognizable to what it was before.
Interesting.
That's what I personally believe, because I think we see it all around that like something is happening, something is like brewing below the ground. Like in a lot of places it already has like erupted, right? Like in Russia, Ukraine, like this whole like Middle Eastern civil war going on.
Yeah.
Like the United States is like in its most unstable state ever since the Civil War.
Yeah, it really, like especially for the US, I feel like it feels like just like a coin toss on which year like a new civil war is gonna start.
Yeah, I mean also the EU. The EU is basically bankrupt.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
And like it has been bankrupt for like many years now, but like how long can they keep up this lie? Because like eventually people would want their money, like real money, not fake money. And at this point, like the ECB would have to like give some answers to the public, and the public will not like these answers because they have been lying to the people for like many years that like the EU is this like democratic I don't know, the haven in the middle of the world, but it's not. It was never a democracy. It was never like fair. It was never and it was never profitable to like the common folk, only to like
kids. You heard it here first.
No, I mean we can like, we don't need to go so far. Like you can see the whole like, first of all you can see like the whole story of like Greece, right?
Yeah, for sure.
They elected a government that wanted to go in like a very specific financial direction. The European Union and the ECB basically told them, no, we don't care about the vote of your people. The EU is not a democracy. It's basically the Deutsche Mark taking over the entire... I mean, it's basically Hitler's fantasy done without like any bloodshed, right? It's like the Deutsche Mark taking over the entire entire Europe. And eventually, like Britain already figured it out. That's why they're out of the union, because they were like, we're all for like a financial union, but we're not for a political union.
But they're also now like kind of like reeling and being like, oh wait, we don't get all the benefits that we had before now that we're out of the union.
Of course.
It's
I mean, also just like I mean, also like all the Brexit promoters, all the people who promoted Brexit, they basically lied. To their voters, because they said that like, we are with the people, we want to make it better to the common folk, and they turned out to be just like more like neoliberal bullshit. It's like, it didn't solve the immigration issue. Like there's now more immigration to the UK. It's just like there's no illegal immigration. There's just like more immigration.
Yeah.
So it's like, so it's very clear that like people are starting to find out that like democracy is a lie. Governments are corrupt all over. It's not only in Russia that the government is corrupt. It's like all over Europe. Or all over the world.
Yeah. Also, capitalism is kind of fucking over the majority of people.
I mean, capitalism has failed, basically. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if do you know Yanis Varoufakis?
No, but the name is fucking cool.
Yeah, he was the finance minister of Greece during like this whole fiasco.
Okay, yeah.
Now he leads this like pan-European movement called Mera 25. But he basically claims that like capitalism is dead. Now we live in the age of techno feudalism.
Oh,
that basically all these like huge cloud companies like Amazon, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, they basically control everything.
I mean,
through their cloud capital, because and the people who people who sell stuff through these platforms, whether it be like a Etsy or like a Amazon directly or like any other type of platform you sell stuff through, or like if you promote yourself through social media, you're basically like a vessel, right? Like you don't have private ownership over your business. You use a platform in order to promote your business, and they can kick you out of this platform if they don't like you. Which is very dangerous in the age of cancel culture, I think. That like you can just like basically like, I mean, they call it deplatforming, right? You can basically deplatform a person like this because they have like a very clear social ID on the these social media sites, and you can like very easily like just like block all their accounts, and they don't have a business anymore.
Yeah. And I feel like it's also like it's not only those tech companies, it's also like generally this whole trend of companies just like subsuming other companies and creating monopolies, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's not a monopoly in the traditional sense, right? Because like theoretically there are like hundreds of other search engines. Like people choose to use Google. Like you don't have to. Like no one forces you to use Google as your search engine. So it's not a monopoly in the traditional sense that like you really don't have any other choices. Like the internet, like in theory, the internet like has democratized like consumerism. But not really.
It's an illusion.
Exactly. Yeah. So am I concerned? Like, I'm not sure. Like, I think the biggest problem is that like the future is very unclear because there's like the 1%. Like, there's like a very small elite that has very clear interests, and it's not the interest of like the rest of the people. And I feel like every decision that is being made by people who actually have the power to make decisions is being made to serve these interests. And I think that for some years, these interests, I don't know if they coincided with like normal people's interests, but they were not as
extreme, or
no, it's more like they were not so insulting.
Okay. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So
I used
blatant,
to
basically so blatant, like
I used to not be so insulted by like Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos's like
for sure,
intentions, you know?
Yeah.
They were like quite like they weren't so
It was background noise.
Yeah, exactly. But now that you have like the Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, for example, they say we're gonna take you to Mars. Like I'm gonna be the new Moses, basically. That's basically
absolutely,
that's basically how they see themselves. or like world leaders, right? They align themselves with these goals, or with goals that like a thing I noticed like quite recently, that there are only two sure thing government is investments. That's war and medicine.
Yeah.
These are the only fields in which governments have invested over time, and they never collapse. They might collapse in the future, but like both war and medicine industry like are doing great.
Yeah.
Especially since COVID. And I'm very concerned that like the people in power will only think of these of like their own financial benefits out of like supporting war and medicine, which for the most part has not been like, I'm not sure like how in recent years how good medicine was to like for saving human lives.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like
I feel like a lot it's also like because medicine has been so driven by making profit and like being profitable.
yeah.
There's been like one example I can think of that I've read about is providing reproductive health for especially women, like in African countries. There was like this huge project. Like I said, I have the memory of a goldfish, so I can't remember who did it. That was like actually making progress and doing good numbers, and like it was really doing well to help women in those countries have better reproductive health and have like I think like the specific goal was to reduce deaths during childbirth. That was like the main goal.
Yeah.
And they were doing super well, and then it got cancelled because it was not profitable. They didn't make any money off it.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, cool. So we're sacrificing millions of lives because we're not making money off of it.
I mean, clearly making like millions of more African children is not profitable.
Yeah, no. Yeah. But it's like this, I feel like it's kind of like the essence of where a lot of like sectors are heading. This whole, it needs to grow, it needs to be profitable.
Yeah, and that's the problem, that like you can see that like governments now are like even in Europe, you see they spend more on both the medicine and war.
Yeah.
And the problem is that they also feed into each other, right? Because if you have more war, you have more people who require medicine. So it's like it becomes like a financial echo chamber, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's very dangerous, and this would probably be the biggest incentive like governments have now for like a world war, because it's like extremely profitable to go to war now.
Yeah,
like all over the world.
That's a fucking scary thought.
Yeah. And it's like you see it like both on like microcosms and like the macrocosms, right? Like you see like on small countries like this is very profitable to go to war, and like you see for the States it's very profitable to have all these wars in Ukraine and in Israel where they can just like sell more American weapons. So we need to basically be prepared that like 10 years from now the world would be a complete different place. And like we're human, like we'll need to adapt. That's like the nice thing is that that's what we do best, adapt.
That's true. Yeah.
That's like the number one feature of humans, being able to adapt to new scenarios. But this is really frustrating because then you can't make long-term plans. But I do think, to like maybe end on a positive note, is that if there is one thing that is worth investing in for the long term, is art. Because I do think that like art is like, first of all, it's a long term investment. It's never a short term investment. Even if you're doing like small projects, even if you're doing like TikTok videos, like it's always a long term investment. So I do think like people should privately, and if they have like the resources, also like on a grander scale, like invest in art, because I think that like even if we all die in World War III, this is what we'll have left.
Yeah.
Like what we have created. And even if we are not here anymore, if we create enough art, enough good art, people would have something like some basis for a culture, something to learn from.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to preserve that kind of art.
Yeah.
Like art in general, I mean, like.
Yeah. I mean, preservation of art is like a whole other deal, because like our intuition these days would go to like, how do you preserve art? You need to archive everything on the cloud. But in World War III, people would start bombing like these server farms.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah.
Like these would be the easiest targets.
Yeah.
So this is like, of course, like back up all your data on the cloud, but like find ways to have physical copies as well.
Yes,
like,
yes.
We need physical art.
The
in the
analog
world.
comes back.
Yeah, analog comes back.
It has a comeback.
Yeah. So.
Yes.
To the analog comeback.
Hell yeah, I'll drink to that.